Want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell.
I thought last week was hard. To do this right, to do this justice is hard. It's complex. And well, see, I don't know where to start. If I do this episode in like the history style, we might be here for a while. The events were part of my life throughout my life. They played a big part from 11 years old until, well, I don't know, 24 years old. But even over the past 6 years, it's been emotional. This isn't just a baseball team. This was so much more than that. I hit on some of this in my episode on the Knicks and on my last episode on fantasy football. The Mets for me were and are a symbol. They, well, here's a moment in Mets history. Let's bring you back. From before I was even a big fan. It's Mike Piazza, and he's about to hit a home run during a game in September. And it's historic. This is a historic moment for the people in the stands and watching at home. How could you not get romantic about baseball? It's the first game post 9/11 in New York City, an emotional night to say the least. People in the stands who lost loved ones, children of recently perished firefighters, and this is their cathedral. In an era where religion has mostly taken a back seat, it's the stadium, and it's a place to sing together, to stand together, to cheer together, and to cry together. And here we are at a moment in history. The Mets were mediocre that year, but it didn't matter. In that moment, a Mets fan, hell, maybe anyone with a heart, could feel the joy for these people who have had it sapped out of them. You could picture it. Two brothers jumping up and down, hugging, maybe even crying. Maybe they just lost their dad, their uncle, their brother. And together, there for a moment, they brought some relief. This is more than a game. It's a bonder of people, a connector. And yes, I won't ignore it's an industry like every other. A business here to make money. And I don't think that isn't the goal of Major League Baseball. I don't want to act as an ad for the league whose main goal is profit. And that's basically going to be a big part of my argument against that Major League Baseball as a whole is amazing at bringing people together, and yet it is a flawed connector of people. One that even at its highest levels of intensity will never truly fill or satisfy that hole. And I lived it. I was the super fan, and I even found a community of super fans. Shout out Mets Chat. Guys who knew every prospect and thought they could manage the team better than those in charge. And that was likely true during the Wilpon era. I love these guys. I love the moments of connection. I loved the connection the Mets brought me with my brother, with my cousins, with my dad. And ultimately, it fell short. It always did. And not because the Mets lost so many games in so many horrific ways. That didn't help. But no, it was more than that. Let's say they won and kept winning. Would it have brought me the joy and connection I was looking for? Baseball can act as a relief from your problems. It's easier to complain about Aaron Heilman or Tyler Clippard or Edwin Diaz than it is to name that your own mother or father or sibling is being emotionally abusive, or that we live in a society that is not built to actually support individuals and has sold us an American dream that is impossible for most people. And so yes, I do want this video to be a love letter to my time as a Mets fan and to really help people understand why and how this team has meant and did mean so much to me. But it's hard for me to see this and talk about this and not feel like it's yet another magically delicious trick. This, baseball, sports in general, like what happens when my team wins? Yay? Well, without wanting to insult the parts of me that love the Mets and still do, I want to talk about some of that pull and some of it for me. I can take us back to a scene in 2006. It's October, and I'm at my first playoff series. See, I used to go to the games for just the churros and the hot dogs and the ice cream. But that October, something was different. There was an energy in the cool autumn air. Shea Stadium was vibrating, chanting, singing, screaming. Imagine for a young me, this moment together with my family, extended family, was something I had never really experienced. See, it wasn't like religion where we barely practiced it at home. You know, we were traditional or whatever that meant. Attending synagogue was mostly a chore and something we could laugh about while we were there, joking about the voice of a cantor or who would sing or mocking the bidding wars for charity. Um, yeah, my cousins, my siblings, my dad, they weren't into the words in the Bible or the prayer books. It didn't really mean much. The holidays were fun. At times, I was into it as a young kid, especially, I learned this stuff in school. But my dad wasn't quoting Bible verses at home. We didn't sing songs around the Sabbath table. We had like 2 times a year we sang Hanukkah while lighting the candles and Passover, albeit rushed through most of it. And I love those moments of connection through song and shared interest in a thing that in those moments we were saying, this is important. We're passing this down from generation to generation. And yet all these moments paled in comparison to the intensity and to the togetherness of Shea Stadium, to the feelings, the sounds, the songs that the playoff brought. And sure, Shea was not millennia old, but my grandpa was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan, and my dad was a Mets fan, and my brother, and here was being passed down to me, and here I was at a big game, and it all felt so real. At least in that moment, it was real. Jose, 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 or the group sing along of Sweet Caroline. Good times never seem so good, so good, so good, so good. And yes, borrowed from Fenway Park, but 11-year-old me didn't know that or care. I still get excited when I hear that song and picture myself arm in arm with my brother and dad and 50,000 other Mets fans. It was special and really unique. For me at the time, I had not been to a playoff series. The Mets hadn't made the playoffs since I was 5 years old, and about half my lifetime at that point. Hell, even watching the games at home were fun during that postseason. I'll never forget Game 4, 2006, NLCS. Delgado crushes one with the bases loaded, and my brother and I screamed so loud we actually shook the walls and set off the window alarm. I can still hear it ringing as we screamed in delight, running through the house. And so to be in that moment, Shea Stadium, Game 7, NLCS, where my dad wasn't yelling at me for making a mess of something. He wasn't stressed about the bills or work or bickering with my mom. Yeah, the walls were thin. And he wasn't on a phone call or in his office with the door closed where I was terrified to knock to bother him. At the playoff games, he was there. And I mean fully there, as much as he could be at least. He was into the game, caring about what was in front of us, what was happening in the moment, singing along, cheering along, smiling, laughing, connecting. It was where I had my dad like that. Maybe on his boat or on the ski mountain. But even then, the motor engine was loud, and it was mostly me watching him or watching him ski or drive the boat or snow skiing. Together can have its moments, but most of it is like a solo sport and only happens so many times. But Shea Stadium, we were together, in it together, and it wasn't just us. There was my brother who, look, I spent a lot of time with, aside from in Shea Stadium, but in this moment, he wasn't trying to outdo me or make fun of me and wasn't too cool for me. We were together in it. It was perfect. We were all screaming and wishing and wanting for the same thing. And yeah, he knew more about the team, followed it more intensely at the time, but in that moment, it was just we were all one. We were all part of it. And my cousins, who couldn't care less about synagogue, were here in this church screaming, chanting, and soon crying. Yes, crying. No, it wasn't after this play. The Chavez catch, the strength to be there. I was there at Shea Stadium in person for it. My dad was in the bathroom while that catch happened. Classic. And but the game ended, Game 7 of the NLCS, with the bases loaded and the bat still on Beltran's shoulders. There was no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey had just struck out. And despite how hopeful we were during his walk-up song of El Está Aquí, as the MVP of the 2006 Mets walked up to the plate with a chance to be a hero, it instead ended in infamy and sorrow. I didn't even fully understand what had just happened. My cousins were crying. I mean, crying, tears, and I mean, he was 7. But yeah, people were booing and throwing literal towels, the hand towels they gave us to wave. And I just asked my dad, because I kind of knew, but I didn't want to believe it. And I looked at him, I'm like, Dad, we're not coming back tomorrow? We had season tickets that year. We went to almost every postseason game, and it was amazing. And then it was gone. Not till April, Mo. Having that moment was similar to trying morphine. For the first time, we're spending a semester abroad eating actual Italian food in Florence. It was a treat, a joy, an incredible thing, but one that would not be replicated. For nearly a decade, I'd chase that dream and cry over it and get anxious over it. God, the bite marks on my DirecTV remote from stress watching the Mets blow late-night summer games. See, that postseason moment acted as like a teaser, a hit of something special, but because of the nature of baseball and the off seasons and all the losing, it was never able to successfully fill the gap of what I was actually looking for. And that was mostly time connecting to my dad and brother, time being with my extended community of 50,000 strong, time around something the people with me actually cared about. It's like playing a board game where everyone is actually invested, or, a religion that people around me actually, cared about. I remember feeling like this when I was at the Western Wall for Shavuos. Thousands packed in for sunrise prayers, all of us ready for an epic moment. But something was different. At least in prayer services, there was no losing. There was no Yachty or Molina to ruin this moment. No strike three looking. And yeah, I use spirituality as an escape and hopeful bypass of feelings, but at least it felt like something I could give my whole being to, and it would give back. There's a great line from the movie Fever Pitch. Many great lines, but one that hits hard. You love the Red Sox so much, but have they ever loved you back? And to say the Mets didn't love me back is not exactly true. The voice of Mets play-by-play announcer Gary Cohen returning in spring training was like soothing balm to my aching wounds. Pleasant good evening, everyone, and welcome to Citi Field. I can't say enough about the homey feeling of the Mets booth. Gary, Keith, and Ron, the jokes, their voices filled my room. They were almost family. Even though I didn't know them, it was just so calming. Win, lose, blowout, they were there. For another quote from Fever Pitch. Why do we inflict this on ourselves? Why? I'll tell you why. Because the Red Sox never let you down. Huh? That's right. I mean, why? Because we haven't won a World Series in a century or so. So what? They're here every April. They're here at 1:05 or 7:05. There is a game. And if it gets rained out, guess what? They make it up to you. Does anyone in your life do that? The Red Sox don't get divorced. This is a real family. This is the family that's here for you. Yeah, it's hard thinking the place with that initial memory of mine doesn't even exist anymore. Shea Stadium. They took Paradise and made it a parking lot. But Citi Field has held beautiful moments too. I wasn't there in person for it, but there's this magical moment that could sum it up from June of 2012. I knew Johan Santana before he was traded to the Mets in 2008. He was the best video game pitcher in the bigs. Shout out baseball video games. More coming on that next week. I knew his best pitch, the circle change in the dirt. And this moment I'm going to show you is 6 years after my initial fandom was born in '06. Most of the players weren't on the team anymore. The Mets were mired in losing season after losing season and trapped in a Madoff-Will Pond financial hell. No playoffs, no beautiful moments, no arm in arm in the stadium. But there was this on a Friday night, no less. Watching Friday Night Baseball was a family tradition, albeit one that often included other family members complaining who weren't so interested, mainly the female ones, though some male ones weren't that interested either. Late season baseball, who needs that when we have preseason football? Or, Shark Tank? Where was I? Yeah, so Santana. And check me out. Look at it. What a moment.
Dirt. Circle change in the dirt. Yo, bring one back. We're all in. We're all marbles.
There have been multiple occasions where people thought I was having a heart attack while I was watching sports after hearing my screams from the other room. No, it's just sports. Like the moment Beltran hit this grand slam against the Marlins in '08 that somewhat fulfilled my '06 dreams. I was by my grandma, and I remember my uncle running in thinking something bad happened and then kind of blamed me for screaming too loud, I guess. Look, I had been waiting for that grand slam from Beltran for 2 years. No, it wasn't the playoffs, but it hit a spot. A similar thing happened on this Amari Stoudemire almost buzzer beater against the Celtics. I needed something to watch during the Mets off seasons. And yeah, so the Mets that moment, oh man. And so the Mets, that moment with my brother hugging, it was special. And look, we spent a lot of time together beyond the Mets. Our rooms were next to each other. We played sports together, video games. We had many avenues of connection. But I can't explain the pure joy of screaming in unison over a baseball team, over the Mets. And know how painful it was to watch that team lose year after year. Early on, I understood, or at least emotionally understood, that each loss was a loss further from the dream of the postseason, further from the fantasy of connection. I remember this moment with my dad. It was 2008, the 10th inning, September baseball. We're watching in the den in Brooklyn, and a rookie, Daniel Murphy, led off the inning with a triple, and they couldn't score him. A 3-run homer by the Cubs the next inning, and the Mets lost again. In a vital game, one that didn't matter to the Cubs, who had already clinched. But for the Mets, this was in a year that they had just missed the playoffs by one game in a 162-game season, yes. And the year before that, lost on strike 3 with the bases loaded in Game 7. And so, yeah, there was the collapse in '07, and this was part of the collapse in '08, where for the second year in a row, they missed the playoffs by one game. And after they lost against the Cubs that night, I was on the couch in the den crying hysterically. And my dad, seeing this, threatened to ban me from watching the Mets, seriously. He said I cared too much. Apparently, he wouldn't let me watch if I was going to get this emotional. What I wish he saw in that moment, or did, was instead of threatening me for having emotions and showing my feelings, instead maybe get curious about what all those emotions were doing there, maybe ask a few good questions. Maybe could have helped 13-year-old me name what was hurting so much inside him. It wasn't about Daniel Murphy or the Cubs B team beating the Mets. It was a desire for connection and togetherness, a deep desire for something I only briefly tasted. And as much time as we spent together, we were rarely fully present together emotionally. We had family dinner every night, but conversations were not about feelings. They were about happenings and non-happenings and what we did that day, school, doctor's appointments, and the latest community BS. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I don't know how to fully put words to it. All I know is I desperately wanted the Mets to win. Now, this isn't just about my relationships with my dad and my brother. It's also, it was a personal relationship with the Mets, especially as the years went on and I became much more intensely involved, caring more than anyone in my family ever did. What can I say? I like to do things fully. I'm passionate about things. Hell, I'm still looking for things and people I can give my full self to in my work. And like specifically my work, I know when I put something into this, stuff like this, I know it comes back to me. For every bit I put in, it can infinitely spread and keep growing. With the Mets, there's only so far it can go. You can study and know, and you can go to all the games and see all the big moments, but what's your reward for super fandom? Yeah, the occasional epic moment, certainly, but it doesn't come often enough. It's like a slot machine. The wins feel good, certainly, but this slot machine doesn't feed me wins consistently enough for me to want to keep coming back. Hell, the last time the Mets won the World Series was nearly 40 years ago, 1986. I wasn't even alive, but I've imagined myself there and watched the highlights so many times I know the Vin Scully call by heart. It's behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. And yeah, so 40 years of not winning, that's a long frickin' slot machine with some small hits along the way, no doubt. Thank you, Daniel Murphy. We wouldn't keep coming back if not. So you can start to see a gambling component to this, not with money, but with emotions and time. I watched or followed every game, 162 games a year, at the very least from 2007 to 2019. Hell, I followed the virtual Mets in COVID. Yes, a fake virtual Mets team, and they did win. Shout out also to 2007 me in sleepaway camp using a crank radio to listen to the Mets lose in extra innings. And yeah, so the emotional gambling aspect is painful. There's a huge part of the reason I am currently abstinent from watching the Mets, or at least attempting it. I've been off nearly 2 months since mid-June, and doing this video now is hard, even doing research on it, watching old Mets highlights. I have to, each time I watch one, I have to delete my YouTube history so it doesn't suggest to me more Mets content. I also have to be careful about my Instagram Discover feature. It's hard to avoid the Mets. You can also see my story about the Juan Soto ad in the Knicks video if you want to check that out. Why do you have to be such an extremist? Why can't you just be a regular fan? Look, I'm an intense human. Look, I don't want to just write this off as addictive personality. I hate that. I see addiction as psycho, and social. There are many factors at play here. And yes, I am less susceptible to the Mets hooking me now than I once was because I have so much going on in my life that is feeding me. Passions, relief from nature, swimming, saunas, and whatnot. The Mets wouldn't have to be my only outlet. But because of their connection to something I am actively trying to mourn, trying to grieve, trying to create space from, and that is the relationship with my dad and my brother, among other things, it's harder. The Mets making the playoffs this year was really hard. I watched. I couldn't not. It was too tempting. And I was excited and screaming and chanting on my own here in Hawaii and trying to explain my interest to my uninterested roommates. Pete Alonso's homer, Lindor's grand slam, great moments, hashtag gay grimace Mets. so much there. This is so deep. It's community, culture, connection. And look, I'm not here to shame you if you are still interested in this. It makes sense. It's fun. Going to the stadium is fun. The food is delicious, albeit overpriced. Drinking a beer and chanting for the Mets is pure joy. It really is. Somebody cue Lazy Mary. Lazy Mary, you better get up. We need your sheets for the table. And no one should ever take that joy away from you. I still dance to Lazy Mary when I cook Italian food. And yeah, I wish the Mets much success and for more great moments between fathers and sons, cousins, brothers, and whoever. May there be infinite great Mets moments. Let's go Mets. But my hesitations do come in here, especially around this magically delicious aspect of it all, of how temporary it is, and how I wish we would engage with it, not for what we wish it was, but for what it actually is. A potentially healthy distraction, an appreciation of talent and incredible human abilities, and a bonder of communities, a space. But it is not a replacement for actual father-son connection. Heart-to-heart talks about feelings and making space for that. Just bringing your kid to the game doesn't make up for the lost time and the stress in the home and the lack of attention where work took most of it. It's complex. And eventually it even became problematic for me. Yes, I had, I guess I'll call it a Mets addiction. I checked Twitter every 5 minutes for Mets updates. It was super stressful, and every losing season would build on each other. By 2017, I was sitting in the holy city of Svat on a graduation trip after finishing my undergrad. I couldn't help, though, but stress about the incoming trade deadline and how yet again injuries took my heroes and another promising Mets team was going to be blowing up. And sitting with a rabbi, he asked a group of us if anyone felt comfortable sharing something they were stressing over. And reluctantly and embarrassingly, I shared that I was stressing over the Mets. And he didn't shame me. He actually gave me a great mantra. I think I've shared this before. I like the idea more and more that I can accept the Mets' performance. Accepting the Mets' performance. Like a gambler willing to accept he might lose. Like a person willing to accept that it might rain. Like a human who can learn to not rely their emotional state on something basically out of their control. And that's vital to understand and worth repeating, to not rely your emotional state on something out of your control. And that's not just about baseball teams. That goes for relying on abusive people too. It can be devastating to accept that. But those people may never show up in the way that you want. And waiting for it can be an exercise in pain and actively holding back, potentially even killing you. Slowly. But yeah, I don't want that advice to ignore the nuggets of wisdom and insight that come from understanding and making space for feelings inside of me that it still exist. That is, the desires and dreams for the Mets to actually win. Those feelings are real and deserve to be paid attention to and dove into. Even and especially the pain when they lose. Why does it hurt so much? Why did I care so much if Pete Alonso re-signed or not? It can seem obvious, but it's worth naming that the question of what would it mean if the Mets won? If you're a fan out there, I ask you, what would it mean if insert your favorite team here won? For me, for the Mets, maybe validation of years of stress and connection with my dad and brother and childhood dreams come true. You know, I recently, for this video, rewatched each out of the 2006 NLCS, and part of me still dreams about a reality in which Beltran swung at that first pitch and crushed one over the right field wall. But what would it mean? Would I be different? Would they? Here's another moment for you in my Mets fan history. It's Mets-Reds, September 2015. I almost forgot this game was happening. It was a chance for the Mets to clinch for the first time since I had become a massive fan. And David Wright is about to hit this 3-run homer. And I'm in tears, bawling. 9 years after Sweet Caroline in the 2006 playoffs, we were headed back. And I just felt how much this all meant. Not just about the potential future moments I would have, that playoffs, but the years of disappointment, the lost extra inning games on late night summer nights, the frustrating blown saves, the endless media coverage, the off seasons, the spring trainings, the prospects, the failed prospects. And coming together all at once in one homer. And for me, I was coming off of or in the midst of a hell of a weekend, see the American Pie College Dream video for that, and to have this moment, it was pure joy. And my Yankee fan friend just didn't get it. He didn't live it. He didn't know it. Dude, what are you crying for? It's just the playoffs, he said with a smug in his tone. 9 years. 9 years, 11 years old to 20 years old. It was half of my lifetime. He wasn't there in 2008 when Ryan Church came so close to tying it, or in 2009 when A-Rod hit this weak pop-up to Castillo, and oh, no, or in 2010 in person for a doubleheader loss to the Rockies and fans had literal bags on their heads, or when the team's budget for the next half-decade was decided by the Madoff scandal, or Sandy Alderson was stacking $5 bills at the winter meetings. He wasn't there in 2013 when the Dark Knight ruled Gotham, but fell too soon to an injury. Or in 2014, when my non-baseball fan friend reads me a text that was on my phone. Hey, dude, what does Zach Wheeler Tommy John mean? Oh boy. And yeah, so they missed the playoffs for the 9th straight year. And so the postseason was special, a lifetime memory at the World Series with my dad. And arm in arm with my sister, my dad, and mom singing Piano Man. 'Cause we're all in the mood for a melody, and you got us feeling alright. So la da 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 dee da. The Mets were up 2-0. It was game 5, headed to the bottom of the 8th, and I was feeling good. Hope was still alive. And hope soon died. And it's sad and it's sweet, and I knew it complete when I wore a younger man's clothes. The ride was fun, but then it was over. There are too many great moments to recall them all, but shout out to watching as Drupal hit this homer, where it just happened to be that I was out at the bar that had the game on and standing with a fellow massive Mets fan, and we were chanting together from the 9th inning. Jose Reyes was back on the Mets that year after a minor domestic incident. And we were chanting, Jose, 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 like it was 2006 all over again. And he tied it. And as Drupal then did this, and suddenly I was running around the bar screaming. Oh man, it was joyous. And there was this moment, I was screaming to my dad to come upstairs, Bartolo did it! Bartolo did it! He's like, what? I'm like, come on, he hit a homer! And we rewinded it and replayed it like 6 times. And of course, the Mets chat. How could I not mention the Mets chat? This would not be a proper Mets video without a dedication to this group of guys. I have so much love for them as individuals and as a group, and I miss them, and I hope they're doing well. We were not just a chat of fans. It was a dedication. Talk almost every day, even in the off season, like a collection of the biggest Mets fans, an Avengers-style Mets chat. We even organized trips to spring training in Port St. Lucie and got to sit together on the famous berm, and went viral after banging on some trash cans while Alex Bregman struck out. I think the most telling part of these trips were that the games barely mattered. We were often disappointed by not being able to get as close to the players and the trainings as we had hoped, and the games themselves weren't that interesting. But it wasn't about the games or seeing the players. It was the moments together in the house, making Friday night dinner, dancing to Baby Shark or Tatiana, or screaming, doing impressions of the famous Terry Collins rant. Terry! MLB did nothing to that guy! MLB did nothing! Terry, you know where I stand! You know where I stand! Our ass is in the jackpot now! What? For those that haven't, it's a must-see rant. Yeah, this wasn't about the Mets. I mean, it very much was, but it was about brotherhood, about connection, about the laughs and the tears and the songs. It was the very essence of being a Mets fan or a sports fan in general. And I miss those moments. Shout out to this lifetime moment. In the parking lot of Port St. Lucie, and I'm crying. I had just met David Wright, and he was actually sitting in the stands next to the Wilpons, and security was scaring people away, but I had a shot, and I took it, and I jumped in, and I was ready to get thrown out of the stadium if I had to, and Fred Wilpon was rolling his eyes at me, and I just looked David Wright right in the eyes with my hand on my heart, and I thanked him for all the years he gave to the team, the joy he brought me for playing with his heart on his sleeve every day, and he just nodded back in appreciation. The security was sending me away. Oh, and I felt like a young Met fan in me could die in that moment. There are tears in baseball. Mm-hmm. And a turning point Mets moment for me, it was the 2019 season. After a fun late season run that looked like it had postseason potential, the Mets were up 10-4 in the big game against the first place Nationals, heading into the bottom of the 9th. I was listening in on the radio on my way back from the hospital. My sister had just given birth to her second son. That was really special. And I stopped on the way back at 2nd Avenue Deli for my favorite sliced steak sandwich and a cream soda combo, and I was sitting there watching Pete Alonso crush this homer on my phone, and I was feeling good. A big Mets win, I thought. And so I get in the cab to head back to my apartment, and I turn on my radio app just to hear Howie Rose say his famous words, "Put it in the books!" And what I heard was nothing like that. The Mets were blowing it. It was 10-6, runners on, and suddenly my phone was ringing, and my radio feed cuts out, and who's calling? Come on, I'm in the middle of something. And in an emotional whirlwind, it was a call officially ending a relationship I had going on. Whoa. And while trying to emotionally process all of that, the call ends, and the radio comes back, and I could hear the radio and Howie, and I'm like trying to figure out what's happening, and the cab driver's just asking me for the money. I'm here, and all right, I pay him, and I get out of the car, and my whole world's spinning, and I listen in. I'm like, is it over? Is the game over? And no, Howie Rose is still there, about to make this call, and here's the pitch, and Suzuki hits it to left. It's gone. The Mets lose. Brutal. Just in that moment, I opened the door to my apartment, and I'm just looking to collapse and process all this, and just get a chance to breathe. And as I enter the room, a mouse jumps out, and I scream. And yeah, I just wanted to throw up. And so I walked over to my bedroom like a zombie and fell on my bed with my clothes on and the lights on, just ready to pass out. And my first thought, I need therapy. And I did seek therapy. That moment was actually the catalyst of the beginning of my personal therapeutic journey. Shout out to this ad that ran, that actually offered free therapy for Mets fans. I didn't use that specific one, but it was funny, tragic, and kind of sweet. Very Mets. Remember, folks, every time you're celebrating a dream comeback win for your team, some other fan out there for the other team is suffering and considering starting therapy, among other things. And so, yeah, things changed after that, after COVID. I got a break from sports and focused on healing. It was nice, and I followed the 2020 to 2022 Mets somewhat, but it was not nearly as strong as pre-COVID and pre that moment. I was more into fitness and health and my relationships and focusing on my doctor program and becoming religious. And yes, I could hear my cousins laughing. But come on, Mo, I don't get it. All the rabbis are Mets fans. That statement has many problems and some truths, but the decision to stop my fandom was mostly a therapeutic one. I felt the amount of attention and stress on an uncontrollable thing was going too far for me, for my well-being. And I was just looking to give my energy to things bigger than that, greater than that, or at least I felt bigger than that. And so, yeah, the religion about that, and my fear of the gay. When I showed Mr. L, my influential religious friend, Mets walk-off celebration, he just so plainly goes, dude, why are you watching gay porn? Yeah, there are so many problems there, but damn, does Starling Marte look good in those short sleeves. Stalin Marte. So I stayed in the Mets chat for a bit. It was hard to leave. I love these guys. I love these connections. But ultimately, I left the Mets chat too, looking to make space in my life for more therapeutic and healing things. Things that wouldn't let me down every time. I did leave them with a hopeful message of a positive city as opposed to panic city. Learning to love the Mets' performance, no matter the outcome. Where am I at now? I guess I don't know. I could go back to watching the Mets, but I could also put my attention towards things that bring me more holistic healing, as in my whole being. The Mets sit in a category for me, personally, if you could believe, at a level more dangerous and harmful than alcohol or video games, for me personally. Yes, alcohol and video games can be great escapes and experiences, and also have their downsides and harms, but for my current being, I can use alcohol and video games mostly moderately. They don't seem to tempt me so deeply. I don't lose sleep over them, mostly. Though those losses in MLB Power Pro still hurt. Yes, I still play. But the Mets, for me at least, feel more dangerous. It could suck me right back into old cycles, old dreams, old relationships that were never enough. And suddenly one game becomes a bunch, and suddenly it's obsessive thoughts, and suddenly it's 1 a.m. and I'm listening to a podcast about why Juan Soto didn't run hard enough down the first baseline in a game in Boston. And it's really complex. The Mets are good now, I think. I mean, I've been off for 2 months. Who knows? But they have good players and good ownership. Thank you, Uncle Stevie. But yeah, I'm in a different place emotionally, less reliant on them to win. I have other things in my life, other ways to find joy and connection. So it feels less of a gamble to get invested in the Mets now, less emotional torture or sadism, um, or sadomasochism. It's still hard. It will be hard. We're not even in September yet. Let's see if I can resist checking in on the playoff push. And what if they won it all? Well, I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't cry. I probably would. It would be a lifetime's wish fulfilled, and no matter what, I'd feel things. Maybe not pure joy, probably a bittersweetness of the connection that I always dreamed about, but wasn't, but isn't. One of the weirdest parts of my Mets abstinence has been watching old highlights. It's like a safe space for me that's not triggering to getting hooked back in, because I know what happened, and yeah, parts of me, I can't fully explain it, but just want to watch a blowout from 2021 and hear Gary, Keith, and Ron making jokes in the booth. The warmth, the ease, the low pressure, and just the presence of sounds and voices that gave me comfort and filled my room for most of my adolescent and young adult life. And in all this, it begs a question. If all this Mets fandom was just about my dad and my brother and those relationships, then why don't I have a relationship with them now? Screw the Mets. I mean, come on. And I wish it was that simple. It is a damn good question. One I'll answer more so as the phase goes on, and certainly in the finale, am I my brother's keeper? It was actually, though, after the Mets playoff run, this past one in 2024, where I finally blocked my brother. He had texted me nonstop with each win and big hit, and it felt brutal. He was sending me pictures of him and his son and my dad together at that first home playoff game, and that's a fantasy for me to be there with them, and it was just so hard looking at that. And yet, still knowing that that moment was never enough. It would never be enough, even if I was there. And so, yeah, after 26 straight rut rows, random unsolicited reach outs, and I get it, they may not be so random, but they certainly were unsolicited, and I didn't respond to one of them. I finally decided to give myself space from that relationship that I had been tied to for my entire life. And with one press of the block button, I said, let's try a weekend. It's been 10 months. It feels really good. To finish this episode up and to answer burning questions of why take a break, why not heal, why not try to repair, it's complex. In short, I am looking for relationships with people who respect those titles of brother and father and treat me back in the same way as I hope those roles would always be. The people that originally filled those roles for me didn't satisfy my needs in those areas and even abused those roles. And it's hard to talk about, especially publicly. It doesn't mean I can't relate to those specific individuals who play those roles ever again, but it wouldn't be in that kind of way and that kind of titles. I'm looking for other people of any gender really to fill those gaps and actually treat those titles with the respect and dignity they deserve. And in the meantime, and perhaps even more importantly, I'm looking to be the best father and brother to myself that I never had. In whatever way that means, to be a brother, to be a father. Maybe it's a listening ear. Maybe it's some space in the heart. Maybe it's just presence, full presence. The people that used to fill those roles for me aren't villains. They aren't failures. I don't hate them. I don't blame them even. I think we all suffered in a bigger system and a cycle of transgenerational and systemic trauma. I even feel bad. I mean, it's tragic, really sad. I'm mourning a lot, but I know it's not my job to fix them, to fix this. And I am grieving for what did happen, for what didn't happen, and all the dreams I didn't see come true, and that could never come true. Because no Mets World Series was going to teach them how to love me and accept me and be present with me. As much as 11-year-old me wished it could, it couldn't. At least not then. And so, yeah, I've been doing this work already. You know, being a father and brother to myself and giving myself permission to take space, healing space. And the results have been incredible. I feel heard, I feel seen, I feel worthy, more so than I ever have. More than any Mets win ever made me feel. And no, it's not the warmth and glow of Citi Field as Piano Man plays, or the intoxicated joy of the Mets chat, or the childlike screams when a big homer is actually hit, but it's consistent, it's sweet. And I am there for me no matter what. No matter how bad I screw it up, I can love me and be present with me in a way no one ever was. To wrap this all up, I want to talk about one last moment. It was a bittersweet moment last October. I missed a major part of Mets history. I was not watching when Pete Alonso hit this 3-run homer to save the Mets season. After the highlight the next day and seeing it, I could only dream what that would have been like to see it with my family. I called my sister to ask what it was like if she was there, and I just wanted a taste of it. I was imagining everyone huddled around the TV. It was a holiday, so I thought my cousins would be there, my uncles, my brother, my dad, maybe even my grandpa somewhere in the background with his Mario-like scream, "Yippee!" Like when he gets a good Dyson toilet. And so I asked my sister what it was like to watch this, if the family was indeed together, and she answers me, no, it was everybody left. It was just Daddy and Uncle, and I had never seen Daddy like that in my life. He ran around like a little boy. The image of my dad running like a little boy screaming about a home run practically alone is sweet, sad, funny, and a bit tragic. Baseball, it has an ability for some to elicit those states, those buried states, the inner child, lost in time but still alive. A baseball moment like that can spark the life back into any grown, quote-unquote, adult. Like this scene from the movie Soul from Disney Pixar. I'm alive! It's a shame. I wish those dates didn't just come out for random historic home runs. I wished I could have seen my dad like that more often. I wish every day could have been like a big Mets win. And so, let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. And this hurts. Making this hurts. Doing this hurts. It's like a eulogy. I have seen Mets logos on people's graves before, and that made me feel things, weird things. If my time comes, please do not ever do that for me. And so I wish the best to my Mets fans out there, and to all the fans out there of any team who are wishing and wanting. Your desires are real and should be cherished. I hate to see people put all that energy and get hurt over and over and over again, when they hypothetically could be putting that energy into loving themselves and improving their relationships with those around them and focusing on things that can feed you back fully. And so, yeah, let's go Mets, but let's go self-love. Let's go self-care, attention, and making space for emotions. It feels good, really good, and doesn't rely on a big hit, or an error, or an injury, or a freak wild boar incident. There's no tabloids to write about it, or Twitter updates all minutes of the day, and no midnight managerial changes or bad signings. No, self-love. Self-love can be unconditional, unreliant on anything else but being there for you. And look, we all make mistakes. I watch the Mets make a lot of them. Always find amazing new ways to lose. It's not about being perfect. It's about being there for yourself, especially after those rough moments. To be a bit corny, you can be your own Cal Ripken, your Iron Man or woman or person who keeps showing up every day for yourself. And so, yeah, that's it for now. Thank you to the Mets. I loved you. I love you. And all those who rooted with me. I loved you. I love you. Have a magically delicious